Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on behalf of a special partnership with Alaska Public Media. It is Sunday, June 12th, 2022, and if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I provide, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence at the website. You can go to a map that shows the continental U.S. with Alaska and Hawaii to the lower left. It is an interactive point-and-click map that allows you to get forecast, watches, warnings, advisories, and all sorts of additional weather, climatological, other type of hydrological water information as well. On the map this afternoon, we have the areas in orange extending across the nation's midsection. Those are heat advisories. The areas in the magentas are red flag warnings and also excessive heat warnings where temperatures are going to be well above 100 degrees. In fact, areas of the southwest Phoenix as well as Las Vegas has seen near record high temperatures around 110 to 115 degrees. That heat is pushing eastward toward the Mississippi River, and then north of that we're expecting severe storms, tornado watch in effect for parts of southeast Montana, northeast Wyoming into western South Dakota, severe thunderstorm watch. South of there, that area of severe storms will continue working its way eastward with the hot air and could trigger severe storms tomorrow afternoon over portions of the lower Great Lakes. Well, here in Alaska, the big story has been the wildfires in the southwest and now the smoke. The smoke and haze has been expanding east-northeastward, and as a result, it's really pushed its way now north of the Alaska Range, up along the Yukon Valley, almost now toward the Alcan border, as well as over the mountains there and into south central areas. There is an air quality alert in effect through Tuesday afternoon. We'll talk about that more in a moment. The forecasters up at the Fairbanks office had to lower the interior maximum high temperatures by 3 to 5 degrees due to the smoke, and that's not a common practice. When you're a meteorologist, you have to take that into consideration when forecasting daytime temperatures. And another side effect is the lower temperatures can suppress or delay thunderstorm development, and we've seen so far a little bit of that this afternoon. But check out these images from the FAA webcams. Sleet mute there in the southwest Kuskokwim River Basin. Half mile in smoke, temperature at 56 degrees. That's really bad air quality there. Hopefully you're not suffering from any respiratory conditions. Up toward Lake Minchumina, 2 mile visibility in smoke there around 2 o'clock this afternoon, temperature 64. That smoke is even now pressing up toward Fort Yukon and Eagle before the end of the day. Now further south on the other side of the Alaska Range, Talkeetna, you can see the smoke aloft because we're seeing the cumulus clouds that are, a few thousand feet, the base of those at least off the ground, if not a bit higher. Notice that opaque kind of milky cloud appearance above it. That's the smoke or haze layer aloft. And here in Anchorage, I watched the smoke approach Saturday evening at sunset. You could see it working its way in from the west. And here is Merrill Field with that smoky haze in around the Chugach Mountains looking eastward. Temperatures this afternoon in Anchorage have been in the mid-60s. Looking at the satellite imagery, you can see that kind of milky haze in the satellite. This is a visible satellite image that goes all the way up there to the east central Alcan border area. So that smoke has worked its way east-northeastward, both north and south of the Alaska Range. If you look down toward the Seward Peninsula near the entrance of Cook Inlet, you kind of see that milky haze in the area that should be clear and brighter where skies are clear like you see out over the Central Gulf. It should be black like that, but it's kind of that milky gray. That's because of the smoke aloft that's come on in. So Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation has issued an air quality advisory for the south central region this Sunday through at least Tuesday afternoon. So very unhealthy conditions. Again, if you suffer from respiratory elements, you want to stay inside and certainly use air conditioning if you have that, and also have some medication on hand if you have trouble breathing, or go see your healthcare provider. Looking at fire danger, the fire danger is shifting eastward now up and through the Tanana Valley, the lower portion of the Tanana Valley and the Yukon Flats. Very high to extreme fire danger. That'll be the focus. That's where the warmest temperatures are going to be the next couple of days. It's also where the best chance for some thunderstorm development will happen if we can get past some of the smoke. And looking at the infrared satellite imagery, you can see one area low pressure south of the Panhandle, west of Haida Gwaii. Another one passing south of the eastern Aleutians and the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. There's another low up around the Seward Peninsula. And kind of a weak trough of low pressure laying in through the central interior, kind of serving as a focus for the wind flow as well as for a chance of scattered showers and storms to pop up. So continues to be showers there along areas of the Panhandle. We've seen the thunderstorms slow to develop in the interior. Could still see a few pop off yet this afternoon and evening. We have one area of low pressure, the main one in the west, central areas of the state. There's kind of mid and upper level support for another low that gets back toward the Bering Strait and Seward Peninsula. The low sitting to the west there, Haida Gwaii, and then also the low that's south of the tip of the Alaska Peninsula. Those are the three main players coming up. We're not going to see as warm of temperatures as what we saw here a week and two ago. Certainly not as warm as what it was when we had readings in the lower 80s, in some areas 70s and lower 80s over the long Memorial Day weekend. Those clear skies are long gone. We're going to be having to deal with this smoke and haze across much of the mainland coming up here for the next few, if not more, days. The fires continue to burn in portions of the southwest, and there'll also be that threat of scattered showers and isolated storms, especially up there through the east central interior where fire danger is highest, and then a little reinforcing shot of cooler air coming in there toward the Seward Peninsula here later on Tuesday into Wednesday. So temperatures Monday morning generally in the 40s for the south central areas. Notice daytime highs not quite as warm. Upper 50s, low 60s Panhandle, maybe some areas getting a little bit above into the 60s to possibly near 70 in a few spots, but it's going to be hazy sunshine due to that smoke. Lows 40s again Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, not quite as warm. There'll be some cloud cover, perhaps a few scattered showers, isolated storms around. So that's going to keep temperatures down. It's not going to be as warm this coming week as what we saw a week and two ago. That was just an incredible stretch of sunny, mild weather for the mainland. And looking at the interior, temperatures near freezing along the Arctic coast. Warmer, though. The warmest readings coming up here in the next couple of days will be Fairbanks on up toward Yukon Flats area. Eagle, we'll see 70 plus. Lows will generally stay above 40 to near 50, even in the Yukon Valley, but near freezing western Seward Peninsula along the Arctic coast. Tuesday, maybe a few degrees cooler, about 70, 72 there at Fort Yukon. In the southwest, we'll see temperatures above freezing, 30s and 40s. And then Tuesday morning, same thing. As we get into Tuesday afternoon, notice a little cooler air there. Bethel, Aniak, westward toward Imanok. That's where we expect temperatures to stay mainly in the 50s. And a quick check of the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook provided by the Climate Prediction Center. This is as we get into the solstice, June 18th through the 21st. Temperatures are expected to be a little cooler across the interior and the southeast. Maybe slightly above normal around surrounding Cook Inlet and up there along the north slope. And then the chances of precipitation will remain a little elevated for some scattered showers, isolated storms across much of the mainland. We expect precipitation may end up being a little bit above normal, nothing too notable to relieve the dry conditions that already exist there, with precipitation averaging a little bit below normal in the southeast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, let's look at your aviation weather, and if you have a flight planned early this week. Monday starts out, we have IFR conditions along areas of the Gulf and back out through the Aleutians, but more importantly, there through the interior, along and especially west-northwest of the Alaska Range. There's a lot of smoke from the tundra fires burning in the southwest interior. So keep in mind, flying through that smoke, it is suspended aloft, extending several thousand feet. That certainly could tend to build up on some of the surface of the aircraft that might need a little cleaning in time if this fire season continues to be active. And we do have the threat of some isolated thunderstorms developing. There'll be scattered showers and embedded thunderstorms there throughout the Yukon Valley along south of the Alaska Range for Monday afternoon. Again, that smoke continuing from the wildfires It's even made it down into and above Anchorage. So it is spreading more toward the northeast up through the Yukon Valley along the Alaska Range either side. And we expect IFR conditions to persist there through the Kuskokwim River Basin and up on the west and north side of the Alaska Range into the central Yukon Valley, as well as back through the southwest YK deltas and also out over the Gulf and through the central western Aleutians. Tuesday afternoon, look for more thunderstorms to be possible there, especially the central Yukon Valley, Yukon Flats down up to the Alaska Range and up the Tanana Valley, with IFR conditions there along Seward Peninsula, southwest coast, as well as on the west side of the Gulf Coast. Anaktuvik Pass should generally see MVFR conditions on Monday, as will Adigan Pass, so maybe slightly better conditions by afternoon, especially the south entrances. And then further south and west, IFR conditions will be especially the western half of Lake Clark and Merrill to start out, giving way to MVFR conditions. VFR conditions as you fly toward Cook Inlet, though again, there are going to be areas of smoke aloft that could reduce visibility throughout the Alaska Range because of the tundra fires to the west. Rainy Pass, IFR becoming MVFR. Windy Pass, IFR conditions outside there of the north entrance. VFR further south there of the south entrance. Isabel Pass could see isolated storm develop there, especially north of the north entrance. Otherwise, VFR conditions. Mentasta Pass, VFR conditions with a chance of isolated thunderstorms and cumulus buildups there for Monday afternoon. Tanita, generally VFR conditions are anticipated. Also, Portage Pass should generally see VFR conditions, though MVFR conditions could be lingering out there over the east entrance and toward Prince William Sound. Chilkoot and White will generally see MVFR conditions hold throughout the day on Monday. Freezing levels, well, they are definitely lower. The colder air that's rode down the east side of the Bering, west side of the state, has now pushed all the way down toward the eastern Aleutians. And we do have at least freezing levels above 6,000 feet over the eastern two-thirds of the state. Slightly cooler there into northwest Canada to around 4,000 feet there and near the Panhandle. Icing potential will be greatest with the system and frontal system. Low pressure that's kind of over the Seward Peninsula and frontal system could produce 6,000 to 12,000 foot areas of considerable moderate icing. Also with the low pressure that's going to be south of the peninsula and Kodiak Island could produce some moderate icing between 9,000 and 15,000 feet. Upper level jet stream winds, you can see the effects of the low that's out there toward the Seward Peninsula, Bering Strait area at 30,000 feet, winds 85 knots out of the south-southwest over the western part of the state, bringing it down to 700 millibars, 9,000 feet. We see that low circulation between St. Lawrence and Norton Sound with south-southwest winds 40-45 knots over the western interior. And then down to 3,000 feet, we have that low-pressure circulation continuing there from around St. Lawrence toward just outside of Norton Sound. Strongest winds coming across the western central Aleutians, 35 to 40 knots. The translation with the low that's not just at the surface, but in the mid-upper levels of the atmosphere that's out over Bering Strait down towards St. Lawrence and west of Norton Sound. There's the potential for some turbulence there north of the Yukon River, south side of the Brooks Range, near just east of Kotzebue, between the surface and 5,000 feet. So if you are able to get your flight out there early this week, I wish you check the latest conditions and forecast and have a safe one.
Technology. It's the rhythm of our everyday life. We're more dependent on satellite and communication systems than at any other time in history. Disruptions can affect our economy and even our safety. To prepare for the effects of such events and minimize impacts, we need to look outside our atmosphere, some 93 million miles away, at a star we call the Sun. It's our main energy source. It warms the earth and grows our food. While the sun and the space between may seem pleasant from our perspective, it's anything but peaceful. At its surface exists a chaotic state of eruptions and radiation. And unlike Vegas, what happens at the sun doesn't stay at the sun.
Space weather is essentially emissions from the sun, radiation, magnetic field that erupts from the solar surface, pumped out into space, sometimes right towards Earth. When it impacts the Earth, it impacts our technology. That's what we call space weather.
These solar events and their effects at Earth can disrupt systems we take for granted. From causing blackouts to the power grid, to delaying offshore drilling operations due to inaccurate GPS data. Interference with communication systems can force air traffic to reroute and impact rescue response and coordination. Outside our atmosphere, solar radiation can harm astronauts and the systems they depend on. The good news is that these eruptions can be detected early. Forecasters at the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado, have their eyes on the sun at all times.
The Space Weather Prediction Center is part of the National Weather Service and is very much like a normal weather forecast office. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're looking at data, we're looking at imagery, we're looking at model outputs. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches of imminent activity to our customers so they can take action.
In many ways, forecasting space weather is a lot like forecasting hurricanes. Those who rely on space weather forecasts, like electric power grid managers, are informed early on and can begin taking protective action.
When we see an eruption on the sun, space weather forecasters will issue a watch. This is much like a hurricane watch. When a hurricane sits offshore of Miami, for example, perhaps 48 hours out, we too can see way in advance that something may be coming towards the Earth.
As the storm moves toward us, it hits a monitoring spacecraft orbiting 1 million miles away from Earth.
It's kind of our buoy sitting out there offshore, and that hurricane, about 45 minutes before it makes landfall, we'll get the measurements from the buoy. That's what this spacecraft does for us. That big eruption that left the sun hits the spacecraft. Now we've got the measurements of exactly what's going to impact us here on Earth, and we issue the warnings to give the power grid a heads up that the storm is now imminent. An interesting element to this whole process is that when the forecasters issue the alert, the power grid receives the alert, takes the necessary actions to protect the grid, and the average citizen never knows anything ever happened.
The number of customers who rely on space weather information continues to grow. As our reliance on technology increases, so will our need for constant monitoring of the sun.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
GPS has changed society. Most people don't realize how remarkable and how many different applications there are.
The GPS has become an integral part, not just of our daily lives as far as cell phones and guidance for our cars and mapping, but the whole system in agriculture is really relying heavily on high accuracy GPS.
So they're using GPS to plant those seeds with centimeter accuracy. And then they can come behind it and irrigate and fertilize right where that seed is with that 1 centimeter accuracy.
The GPS creates a line for the operator that he can steer along, or you go to another level and the operator doesn't steer anymore and the tractor has an automatic steering system on it, much like a cruise control on a car, except for when I push the button it doesn't drive a set speed. When I push a button it stays on a predefined line.
You don't even need lights. You can do it at nighttime. You program your GPS and it's driving that tractor for you. So it's huge, and it's changing the way that the farmers farm the fields.
6 or 7 days out.
There's an interest in GPS applications from space weather side because when the sun is eruptive, it causes GPS to falter, and in some cases it doesn't work at all.
Productivity may suffer to a certain degree in that there's no way that I as a human being can steer as good 8 hours a day as a GPS system's going to do. It's going to be the same all day long. Some of the other application technologies, those are going to be gone. We're not going to have the ability to do good section control on sprayers and planters and fertilizer applicators without GPS.
We see a huge growing customer base in so many different industries, so many different sectors now relying on GPS and high precision GPS. All big customers for us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and now looking at the sea ice edge. In the Arctic region, we continue to see the melt-off as we now are just a little over a week away from the solstice. And the ice will continue to melt and break up. We have the ice really opening up there, or I should say the water's becoming way more open there through the Bering Strait, and still lingering ice though around the east side of St. Lawrence Island, as well as the area there at the tip of eastern Russia. Also lingering ice along the northern coast there of the Seward Peninsula on into Kotzebue Sound. But as we expect, ice will tend to shift around a bit too, with winds that'll be predominantly out of the northeast as we go through early in the week. For southeast Alaska, though, the Panhandle will see south winds 10 to 15 knots across the inner channels with waves of 2 to 3 feet. Winds generally out of the west around 10 knots, waves though only 3, 4, maybe 5 feet at best there for the Gulf Coast. And then by Tuesday, winds will be south-southeast across the inner channels with waves running 2 to 3 feet. And along the outer coast, winds will generally be out of the south-southeast around 10 to 15 knots with waves of 4 to 5 feet. The northwestern Gulf, relatively quiet, a mixed bag of winds, variable winds around 10 knots. Prince William Sound off the Kenai, south of Cordova with waves a couple of feet in Prince William Sound, maybe 3-4 feet off the Kenai. Winds will be southeasterly at the entrance of Cook Inlet at 20 knots with waves 6-7 feet. Falling off to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots through mid and upper Cook Inlet, and waves generally running a few feet. And then on Tuesday, low pressure will be well southeast of Kodiak Island, but look for easterly winds 15 knots in Prince William Sound, waves a couple of feet, and east to northeast winds off the Kenai and in through lower Cook Inlet with waves running 5 to 6 feet. Across Kodiak Island on Monday, winds will be generally south-southwesterly with waves 4-5 feet, but as we go down the length of the Alaska Peninsula, winds turn more northerly at 20 knots with waves 5 to 6 feet either side, though westerly 20 knots, 4-footers there south of Bristol Bay. And for Tuesday, winds will be northeasterly around Cook Island 15 to 20 knots with waves of 5 to 6 feet. Those winds northwesterly to 20 knots on the North Pacific side with waves of 6 feet, and then westerly winds 15 to 20 knots with waves of 3 to 4 feet from Cold Bay on up to Bristol Bay. And across the eastern Aleutians, winds will be out of the north-northwest with waves running 4 or 5, maybe locally 6 feet on the North Pacific side. More westerly winds, central Aleutians to 15 knots. And then on Tuesday, stronger area of low pressure is going to be located well southwest of the western and central Aleutians, and this will cause winds to increase from the southeast and south at 30 to 35 knot gales, especially west of Atka. Otherwise, south to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots there across the eastern Aleutians. West Coast winds will generally have a westerly or northwesterly component at 15 to 20 knots, waves running 3 to 5 feet. Southwest winds 15 knots there in through Norton Sound with 3-foot waves. And then as we go into Tuesday, winds will be southwest to south, anywhere from 15 to 20 knots, maybe as high as 25 knots there south of St. Lawrence Island, and waves generally running 3 to 5 feet. And then across the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the east-northeast, 15 to 25 or 20 knots, accelerating to 25 knots along the northwest coast down toward off of Cape Lisburne and Point Hope, with waves 4 to 5 feet in the open water. And then on Tuesday, easterly winds around 20 knots along the Arctic coast, Utqiagvik through Kaktovik. And look for east-southeast winds upwards to 25 knots. Lower Chukchi Sea south of Cape Lisburne and extending down through the Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence Island, with waves running 5 to 6 feet. And a quick check of the surface weather maps on Monday. We'll have an area of low pressure south of Kodiak Island in the North Pacific, just southwest of the Gulf. Low pressure out toward the entrance there of Kotzebue Sound, the north side of Seward Peninsula. Smoke will be widespread across the interior, south central, as well as into the east central areas, with some scattered showers and isolated storms. Low pressure remains south of the Gulf on Tuesday, with a reinforcing shot of cooler air coming in toward the Bering Strait.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.